Hi everybody, and welcome to Virtual Sunday School. Well, as you can see, I'm kind of in a spooky place. A place that some people might say is haunted, meaning a place where you would encounter ghosts. And you already probably know about some places like that. If you've been to Disney World, you've been to the Haunted Mansion. And in fact, there are even some places in America where you can go and you can actually buy a supposedly haunted house. So that brings up a question. Are there ghosts mentioned in the Bible? There are many examples in the Bible where people thought that they saw a ghost, but usually what they saw was an angel. And probably one of the most famous ones in the New Testament is when the apostles thought they saw a ghost and it turned out to be Jesus. Well, Jesus did resurrect from the dead, but that's a totally different thing. But are there any examples of a real ghost appearing in either the Old Testament or the New Testament? Now, there is one story in the Bible that comes close. This is a story that happened at a place called Endor. No, not that Endor. This is now a biblical Endor. There was a great, well-respected prophet who was named Samuel. And throughout his time as a prophet, everyone loved him. And this nation of Israel was safe. But then he died. And now there was a new king. Saul wasn't very experienced. And so what ended up happening was all of this prosperity started to disappear. And before you knew it, he was surrounded by the great Philistine army. And they were getting ready to attack. And Saul is thinking,
if only Samuel was here, he'd tell me what to do, but Samuel is dead. So what do I do?
And he thought to himself, and he says,
I got it. I'll talk to a necromancer.
Necromancer? That's a big word. What does that mean? Well, a necromancer is a witch or a sorcerer who claims that they can not only speak to the dead, but they can actually bring their ghost back. So Saul goes to this old woman who claims to be a necromancer and says,
I want you to bring Samuel back for me.
And so the necromancer says,
I can do that.
But before she has a chance to cast her spell, the ghost of the prophet Samuel appears. And the woman cries out in terror. And so Saul recognizes prophet Samuel and he says,
please, tell me, what should I do?
And Samuel says,
well, I'm sorry, but there's no good news here. You are going to be defeated by the Philistine army and you probably are not going to make it.
And he's like,
well, why? What happened?
And Samuel says,
because you have been an affront to God, meaning that you've turned your back on God.
And Saul says,
what have I done wrong?
And Samuel says,
dude, you contacted a sorcerer and now you're speaking to a ghost. I mean, doesn't that give you some idea?
And so in the end, the Philistine army does defeat now the kingdom of Israel and Saul. But the question is this really a ghost story? Well, actually, Jesus himself gives us the answer here. In the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, which if you remember our video from a while back, Jesus talked about this great chasm, this great divide, where the dead can't speak to us, that they can't cross over, and we can't cross over to that side. So then, what's the problem here? Is because we as human beings are just scared of what we don't know. So when you're in a dark place like this, then you automatically are scared, or you think that you're scared. Think about it. In ancient times, people were sitting around in huts or they were around a campfire and they would hear these strange noises and they didn't have Google or a smartphone to look up what it was. I mean, they'd hear a sound like, and they'd be thinking, what was that? Is that a spirit? Is that a ghost? What is that? Now, today, I mean, we know that that's an owl, but those people had to think along what they knew. Even today, we can get in those kinds of situations. We can be in a dark place And if we don't know what that particular sound is, then our mind will fill it in with something. Or maybe you saw this ghostly face appear and it turns out that you just bumped into a mirror and you saw yourself. Our minds fill in the blanks to explain things that we can't understand. So to answer that original question, what was it that Saul saw? Maybe we can think about a friend or a relative that you know that says that they've seen a ghost. Well, when people don't have a logical explanation for something, their minds can create what it is that they want. And it does make for a good story. I mean, if you tell somebody a story and say, and I thought I saw something and I really only saw my reflection in the mirror, ooh, that's not really scary. I mean, a good ghost story is a really good story. So in the case of Saul, he was so desperate to get an answer about what should he do with this huge army that was going to come down upon him, that he wanted to see Samuel so bad that that's what his mind created. So that what in the end Saul saw was not the real Samuel. So for us as Orthodox, ghosts don't exist. What we believe is that through our faith, and through the fact that we as righteous and good people, we have the protection of God, Father, Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit that is there to protect us always, and that we don't have to be afraid of the unknown. So see, in the end, there's really nothing to be scared about in this spooky house. Well, although the Bible didn't say anything about werewolves, well, maybe that's just a big chihuahua or something like that. So maybe I'll just use that and I'm just going to go ahead and leave. So remember, real quick, subscribe, something, do something, and then I'll come back next week.